Today we're going to be reviewing adding and subtracting whole numbers, decimals, and fractions. So let's start out with whole numbers and decimals. So if you'll remember earlier in the year, we said that addition problems are problems that give us parts and ask us to find the whole. So let's take a look at this problem here. It says Henry recorded the amount of rainfall over 2 hours. In the first hour, Henry measured 2 and 345,000 centimeters of rain. In the second hour, he measured 1 and 98 hundredths centimeters of rain. What is the total amount of rain that fell? I know that this is an addition problem because it gives me parts. It told me 2 and 345,000 centimeters of rain were measured in the first hour, and 1 and 98 hundredths centimeters of rain were measured in the second hour. And it asked me to find the total amount of rain that fell over the course of those 2 hours. So I know that I'm going to have to add those two numbers. So I'm going to pull them out of here. I have 2 and 345 thousandths. And then I also have 1 and 98 hundredths. So what I notice about those numbers right now is they are not very compatible. It's really hard to add a whole number. It's really hard to add a decimal to a fraction. So what I'm going to have to do here is change either my decimal into a fraction or my fraction into a decimal. If I look at that 1 and 98 hundredths, that's pretty easy to change into a decimal. I'm going to give it the same exact name. I'm just going to put it in decimal form. Now I have 1 and 98 hundredths. I changed my fraction 1 and 98 hundredths to a decimal 1 and 98 hundredths. Pretty cool how they have the same name. Makes it a lot easier. So now that I have two decimals, I am ready to add. What I would like to do first, though, is estimate. So at the end of this, I can check and make sure that my answer is reasonable. So if I start with 2 and 345 thousandths, if I round that to the nearest whole number, I'll start with my 2, I'll look over to my 3. 3 is smaller than 4, so that means that I'm going to round down. So I would say that 2 and 345 thousandths is about 2. If I do the same thing to my 1 and 98 hundredths, I look over and I have a 9 here. Well, obviously I'm going to round that up. My 1 is going to become a 2. So 1 and 98 hundredths is about 2. I know that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So I would say that a pretty good estimate for the answer of this problem would be 4. Now that I have an estimate, I am ready to actually add. So another super important thing that I have to keep in mind when I'm adding decimals and whole numbers is that I have to line up my numbers based on their place value. So whenever I have decimals, that's pretty easy to do. All I have to do is make sure that that decimal is lined up. And in this case, you see how I have this empty space over here? I can go ahead and fill that empty space up with a 0 just to make things a little bit easier. It does not change the value of that number because I'm adding a 0 after a decimal point. So it just makes it a little bit easier for me to see without changing the value of the number. Now I'm ready to add. 5 plus 0 is 5. 4 plus 8 is 12. That is more than 10, so I'm going to bring down my 2 and I'm going to regroup my 1. I am taking 10 of those and trading them in for the next larger place value. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 5 is 13. Put down my 3, carry my 1. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 more is 4. I have to bring that decimal straight down. So that gives me a final answer of 4 and 325 thousandths. Now, if I was to round that to the nearest whole number, I would say that it is about 4. And that was the original estimate that I got. My answer is pretty reasonable. Let's try a subtraction problem. So if you'll remember earlier in the year, subtraction problems are problems that they give us the whole and they give us a part, and we are asked to find a missing part. So let's check out this problem here. Hannah has 3 kilograms of apples and 2 and 289 thousandths kilograms of oranges. How many more kilograms of apples than oranges does Hannah have? We have the whole. We have 3 kilograms of apples. We have a part, 2 and 289 thousandths kilograms of oranges. We want to know how many more kilograms of apples than oranges Hannah has. So in order to figure out this problem, we are going to have to subtract. We'll subtract 3 from 2 and 289 thousandths. Okay, again, let's estimate. Well, 3, it's already rounded to its nearest whole number. It's 3. What about 2? We have 2 and 289 thousandths. If I look over to the next place value, I have a 2, so I would round down. I could say that 2 and 289 thousandths is about 2. So if I was to subtract 3 minus 2, I could say that that my estimate for this problem, my answer at the end, should be somewhere around 1. All right, so now that I have an estimate, I am ready to actually start subtracting. So again, I have my 3, whole number 3, and I'm subtracting 2 and 289 thousandths. So probably the easiest thing for me to do is to put my decimal here that I know exists after this whole number 3, and I'm just going to go ahead and add 3 zeros. It does not change the value of it, but it does make it a little bit easier to subtract. So I have 3 minus 2 and 289 thousandths. Okay, so already off the bat, I have 0 minus 9. If I have 0, I cannot take 9 away. I also have another problem because I don't have anything to come and regroup from here or here. So my first thing I'm going to have to do is regroup from my 3. I will take 1 away from it, changing it into a 2. That would change this number here into a 10, but I'm going to have to continue to regroup. So I'll change it into a 9, which would change this into a 10. And I'll regroup one more time, changing this into a 9. Now I have a 10. So now I can actually subtract. 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 8 is 1. 9 minus 2 is 7. Bring that decimal straight down. And now I have 2 minus 2, and that is 0. Now, if I were to round this number to the nearest whole number, I would look over, I have a 7. 7 would round up, so I would say that that is about 1. That was the original estimate that I got. So I could say that my answer of 711 thousandths is pretty reasonable. So, some really important things that you need to remember when adding and subtracting whole numbers and decimals. Make sure that you line up those decimals with that you line up those numbers with the correct place values. And if you need to put decimal points after whole numbers and add zeros, you are more than welcome to do that. It does not change the value of it.